Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jed Unterrecker. I'm an assistant county attorney here in El Paso County. Thank you for coming here today as the County of El Paso, Sheriff Richard Wiles, and the Texas Organizing Project announces the filing of its lawsuit against the recent passage of the bill commonly known as SB 4. Here to talk to you today specifically on the lawsuit will be counsel for the County of El Paso and Sheriff Wiles. That's Mr. Jose Garza of the firm Garza Golando Moran. We also have a representative from the Sheriff's Office and Commander Flores, who will be speaking on the Sheriff's position on this lawsuit and why he takes offense with this piece of legislation. Finally, we will have Brooke Bischoff, who is attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project here in El Paso. They are representing the third plaintiff in the case, the Texas Organizing Project. Afterwards, we will open up the floor to questions of any of the speakers, and then after that, members of both Commissioners Court and the attorneys will be available for one-on-one discussions on what's been filed here today. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jose Garza.
Thank you all for coming to hear our position and why this lawsuit needed to be filed. As I speak, a lawsuit is being filed against the state of Texas and the governor based on our allegations that SB 4 is a discriminatory law that actually impedes public safety, doesn't enhance public safety. In the lawsuit that we filed today, we point out the unique character of El Paso County, why its involvement in this case is so important. We also talk about, in that lawsuit, the claims that we have. This law is just another version of a continuing attack on the immigrant community from Austin. This particular bill, though, is even more egregious because it has the potential effect of undermining public safety and undermining the authority and of local jurisdictions to set policies for their own communities. They are in the best position to know, based on the characteristics and the interaction that they have with their residents, about how best to police their community. And this law takes that discretion, takes those policy decisions out of the hands of local officials. This law seeks to federalize local enforcement of immigration laws, something that's exclusively reserved to the federal government. It's unconstitutional. It undermines local discretion on policy and priorities and undermines the very chain of command that is vital to law enforcement and was adopted with a discriminatory intent. Many of you may already know that state of Texas enactments dealing with the Latino community, with the Hispanic community on voter participation, the voter ID law, the redistricting laws, have been found to be not only discriminatory, but intended to discriminate against the Hispanic community. And SB 4 follows in that line. As I said, El Paso County is a unique governing body to bring this claim. First of all, the law places severe penalties on local officials and on the government itself of El Paso County if the Attorney General decides that they are not complying with the provisions, the unconstitutional provisions of SB 4. El Paso County is over 800,000 people, more than 82% Hispanic. More than 25% of the population of El Paso is foreign-born. This is the population that is targeted by SB 4. El Paso is committed to keep El Paso one of the safest and secure cities in the country. El Paso is in the best position to understand our community and develop policies that protect and provide for the safety of our community. So those are the nutshell, in a nutshell, the claims that we have, the reasons we've brought this lawsuit, and why it's so important that El Paso County steps forward and does this. We have filed the lawsuit, or we are filing the lawsuit, as I said, as we speak, in the Western District of Texas in the San Antonio Division. As you may know, there are currently 2 lawsuits that are already pending on this issue. One, an affirmative attack by the Attorney General and the Governor against jurisdictions in Austin, the city of Austin, Travis County, and a civil rights organization that is legend in the Mexican-American community, the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Why? Because they have expressed their opinion, guaranteed by the First Amendment, in opposition to this bill. So they've been targeted already by the state in a lawsuit in Austin. The League of United Latin American Citizens has filed a lawsuit in San Antonio. We're not joining that lawsuit. We're filing our own separate lawsuit, but in that venue. And we believe that's the best place to do it, the best place to argue these points. Those are the 2 competing venues, and so that's the reason we've decided to do that. I'm honored and I'm thankful to the county for having trusted in my firm to bring these claims in federal court, and we're prepared to go forward. In addition to having the El Paso contingent, the County of El Paso and the El Paso County Sheriff, we also, as a plaintiff in this case, have the Texas Organizing Project, an organization out of San Antonio and Austin. They're represented by the Texas Civil Rights Project, and that attorney will also address the address this session. Unless you have some questions, or if you have some questions, I'm prepared to answer those. Otherwise, I will turn it over to the next speaker.
Why did the county didn't join the other lawsuits? Why filing on its own?
There's a couple of reasons. First of all, the lawsuit that's filed in Austin is one in which the state has become the aggressor, and we don't fit into that scenario. The second reason we filed a separate lawsuit in San Antonio instead of joining the lawsuit that's there is that our claims are unique, are different from LULAC's claims because of the unique nature of El Paso County and the way that it serves its population, and also the Texas Organizing Project and the way it serves its community is different than the claims that have been made by LULAC. So we're going into that venue to make sure that the judge that has been assigned to hear the LULAC case hears our case as well.
What kind of experience does your firm have in combating something like this?
So my firm represents the Mexican American Legislative Caucus. We are involved in both the SB 5 or the SB 14 and the redistricting challenges. And I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and every decade the state of Texas gives me more and more employment.
How much will this lawsuit cost the taxpayer?
So it's difficult to tell. At the very inception, we've provided an estimated budget to the county. I must say, though, that this case, in my opinion, is a very good case in terms of the merits of the case. And if we prevail, the state of Texas will be responsible for paying the costs to the county of El Paso, including their attorney's fees.
Well, what's the budget? You mentioned you have a budget. What is the budget for this?
I don't remember exactly. It's in the range of $125,000 to $150,000.
¿Puede hacer un comentario en español, señor? Habemos varios canales en español aquí.
Seguro. Hoy pusimos una demanda en contra del estado de Texas, peleando la ley que fue pasada en la legislatura, lo que se dice SB 4, donde el Estado está tratando de determinar cómo se enforza la ley de inmigración con nuestros oficiales locales. Nosotros pensamos que no solamente es una ley que viola la ley federal, en que discrimina en contra hispanos, latinos, ciudadanos y inmigrantes igual, pero también pone una pone requisitos en contra de los oficiales del condado, el sherife y otros oficiales del condado, que es en contra de la Constitución de los Estados Unidos, y por eso pusimos esta demanda.
¿Usted cree que esto pueda frenarla? ¿O eso es la intención de frenarla, que no entre el 1 de septiembre?
Es posible, todavía no hemos determinado precisamente cómo vamos a progresar con la demanda, pero eso es algo que estamos considerando.
¿Se tiene antecedente de que se ha ganado alguna demanda?
¿Mande?
¿Se tiene antecedente de que se ha ganado?
Ha habido otras leyes casi igual como la ley que pasó el estado de Texas, en Arizona, por ejemplo, y la Corte Suprema ha dicho que esa ley es en contra de la Constitución de los Estados Unidos. Esto es algo muy similar, ¿verdad?, como esa ley. Trata, como digo, determinar que oficiales locales enforzan las leyes de inmigración, cuando ha dicho la Corte Suprema muchas veces que eso es algo que solamente el gobierno federal debe de enforzar.
Señor Garza, con la experiencia que tiene, ¿cuánto tiempo cree usted que se va a llevar este juicio peleándolo en las cortes?
Es difícil para determinar precisamente, ¿verdad? Porque aunque ganemos con la Corte en San Antonio, todavía puede haber apelaciones a la Corte Suprema. Y eso es algo que es muy difícil a tratar de determinar. Puede ser que estemos aquí en 2 años, o puede ser que en 6 meses ya se acabó. Eso es algo que simplemente no podemos precisamente determinar en este punto.
¿Cuánto le
¿Como abogado,
costaría?
cree que se va a enfrentar a un monstruo de abogados del gobierno de Texas? O sea, ¿está preparado para enfrentar todo esto?
Seguro que sí.
¿Cuánto le costaría al contribuyente esta demanda?
¿Mande?
¿Cuánto le costaría al contribuyente esta demanda?
Aquí en el condado. Bueno, como he dicho, es algo que no es algo que se puede hacer por gratis, ¿verdad? Sí va a costar dinero. Pero últimamente, si ganamos y estamos... esta es una causa muy buena, ¿verdad? Y si ganamos, entonces el estado de Texas va a tener que pagar los costos, no solamente de defender la ley, pero también los costos que el condado de El Paso tuvo que gastar para ponerse a esta ley. Pensamos que hemos dado una figura al condado donde no estamos precisamente seguros cuánto va a costar, ¿verdad? Pero puede ser que sea más de $100,000.
You mentioned the reasons for filing this lawsuit. What do you hope comes out of it? What do you eventually hope the end game is for this suit?
So that this law, SB4, is enjoined and declared unconstitutional. That's the ultimate goal, that to free up local governments to enforce their local policies on policing, on community work. That's what we're hoping from this lawsuit.
We've seen the Supreme Court uphold different parts of SB 1070, a similar law to this. At what point do you guys maybe try to use how that case went compared to this one?
So I think it's too early to tell. The state of Texas does not have a history of reaching out to the Hispanic community to reach compromise. It's all or nothing, especially in the last few years. We believe that the law that Texas has passed exceeds the restrictions that were placed on local jurisdictions and on residents of Arizona. We think this law is even worse than the Arizona law. So it's up to the courts in the final analysis to determine how much the state has to pull back. Our initial position has to be, at this point, that we want SB4 struck in its entirety.
Mr. Garza, maybe you asked this when I stepped out. I don't know if anyone asked, what comes next? Today, the lawsuit is filed. What are the next things that the community can anticipate and the timeline?
So, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 other lawsuits that are pending. We're filing this case today. My guess is that there will be additional lawsuits that will be filed perhaps in San Antonio or perhaps across the state. So there's a possibility that the first order of business for the federal courts is to determine where these issues will be litigated. I can almost guarantee that they will not be tried in different locales. There at some point will be some consolidation of all of these cases that are filed and that will be filed. Then I think there will be probably motions to dismiss filed by the state, and we will make determinations about whether we need preliminary injunctive relief as we proceed, as we prepare for the final trial on this case. Those strategies, of course, are not yet set in stone. Those are things that we anticipate and that you should be looking for as this course of this litigation moves forward.
What about the federal ruling already that was in place with El Paso? Does the federal rule or the federal ruling oversee whatever the governor, or no?
So SB 4 goes beyond the sorts of things that have been litigated in El Paso, but it does have some effect. That's one of the reasons that El Paso is a unique plaintiff, if you will, in challenging the provisions of SB 4. That's an issue that we've raised in the lawsuit and that we expect the federal court at some point to make a determination of.
Do you think that's gonna help in the case?
Absolutely. I think that it's difficult to tell whether it will help or not, but it's an important consideration in the whole context of who controls enforcement of federal law and to what degree, and what local jurisdictions subject themselves to if they get too entrenched in doing what the federal government should be doing.
You talked about the uniqueness of El Paso's case. Any other border counties or municipalities that can join this lawsuit?
So certainly. I mean, there are other jurisdictions that they have to make their own decision. I'm not familiar with another jurisdiction along the Texas border that has made any sort of decision on that. I wouldn't be surprised if many are contemplating it.
You mentioned if the Attorney General deems a community as a sanctuary city, do you think filing this lawsuit will give the Attorney General cause to consider El Paso County or the city of El Paso as a sanctuary city, thus resulting in fines and penalties on this community?
So, again, think about the how we found ourselves in this position. This law doesn't have anything to do with public safety. It's a targeting of a special community. The fact that the Attorney General and the Governor have already taken aim at jurisdictions who have publicly said they would follow whatever the state law is, whatever the federal law is, because of their public statements that they've made in opposition to this law and to these provisions, should tell you something about the mindset in Austin on this. I don't think that the El Paso County deciding to stand up and defend itself before it is attacked will provoke additional harm or attacks from the state. The state is already poised to punish anybody that speaks out in contradiction to its own beliefs about what immigration law and immigration enforcement ought to be in the state. And they've proven that, not only by suing jurisdictions who have voiced their opinions, but by suing a civil rights organization for expressing its opinions. So, no, I don't think that El Paso should be concerned about that.
And again, we'll be able to take further questions at the end, and both the lawyers, Commander Flores, and other public officials will be available for comment. I'd like to welcome Brooke Bischoff.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for being here. As Jed said, my name is Brooke Bischoff. I'm an attorney with the Texas Civil Rights Project here in El Paso. And the Texas Civil Rights Project is proud to represent the Texas Organizing Project Education Fund, known as TOP, in this litigation challenging SB4. TCRP and TOP are joining this lawsuit because, as was just discussed, SB4 unconstitutionally targets Latino Texans and their families, and the implementation of what is essentially a show me your papers law will undoubtedly lead to racial profiling, just as SB 1070 did in Arizona. This law also impedes law enforcement by forcing local agencies to act as federal immigration agents, and discourages Latino community members from reporting crimes due to fear that anyone who interacts with local law enforcement may be asked to show proof of their immigration status. Our client, TOP, works to improve the lives of low and moderate income Texans through community organizing and civic engagement. SB4 will be a huge imposition on TOP's work. They will no longer have the ability to do this important work with the same capacity because SB4 directly targets both the employees of TOP as an organization, and the clients that TOP represents, which include Latino non-citizens and citizens. SB4 would force TOP to divert their very limited resources from critical programs in organizing in order to educate their clients about SB4. And it will also create a climate of fear in which their clients are deterred from seeking assistance from TOP and participating in TOP activities because they're scared that local law enforcement is going to ask for papers and proof of their immigration status when they're engaged in TOP activities. The Texas Civil Rights Project has over 25 years of experience in challenging the discriminatory laws targeting immigrant communities, especially here in El Paso and all throughout Texas. And this challenge of SB4 is no different. We are really looking forward to working with our partners on this litigation in order to protect the constitutional rights of all of Texas, regardless of any Texan's race, national origin, or immigration status. I can take any questions.
What did you say? Spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Brooke Bischoff, Brooke Bischoff.
Good afternoon. My name is Robert Flores. I'm a commander with the El Paso Sheriff's Office. I'm here on behalf of Sheriff Richard Wiles. We'd like to express as an organization that we are also against the passage of Senate Bill 4. We believe that this bill doesn't make our communities any safer. By forcing local law enforcement to act as immigration officials, it really puts a lot more pressure on our resources that we're already investing in to maintain law enforcement within our community. We believe that this is totally contrary to any community policing philosophy, and our relationship with our community has been a big part of our organization for many, many years. The perceptions behind this bill, we feel, are going to prevent people from coming forward and report crimes, and we feel that that's going to be unsafe for the community as a whole.
What's the feeling in the department from
Officers.
How do they feel about this law?
I think everyone's pretty much on the same page. I mean, the individual officers that we have working within our organization, they want to go out, they want to serve the community, want to go enforce state law. That's what we signed up for. You're not, the additional responsibilities to enforce a law that is kind of antiquated and using local law enforcement it's an antiquated philosophy, using local law enforcement to go out and enforce federal law. That's not something that any of our officers want to do. They want to go out, they want to do the job that they were hired to do, and of course anything that helps make their job more effective, like a strong relationship with the community. That's where we stand, and this bill obviously is going to hamper that.
Have you seen any changes as to when it comes to reporting in these last few days with people, or just people's perception with this new law?
No, sir, we haven't seen anything yet.
For you all, it seems like this law is going to be fairly tough to enforce because it seems like you don't know when somebody's using officer discretion, saying they need to work with the citizens. Excuse me. So for you guys, how are you making sure that all deputies are, following this law, and also in regards to make sure that the department and other deputies and sheriffs aren't getting in trouble?
Well, remember, this law doesn't go into effect till September 1st, assuming that it does still go into effect at that time. But we're constantly reviewing our policies and our procedures and updating them as necessary. And I'm sure there'll be some policy revisions in that time once this law goes into effect.
Señor Flores, en español me podría decir si el departamento del sheriff, ¿cómo va a hacer su trabajo para que la gente tenga confianza y confíe en ustedes para presentar las denuncias y no que tenga miedo de que le van a...
Sí, es lo que queremos que todos sepan, que la confianza de las personas que viven aquí en El Paso es muy importante para nuestro departamento, para que podamos hacer nuestro trabajo. Y queremos que todos tengan la confianza, no tengan miedo para llamarle a la policía o al departamento del alguacil y le podemos ayudar. No estamos aquí para agarrar a alguien y llamarle a Border Patrol. O tengan confianza que todavía estamos aquí para hacer nuestro trabajo. Good. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for any of our speakers? And if not, then thank you again for coming, and people will be available for comment if you'd like to talk with them personally. Thank you.